The Liebherr T284 mining truck is a little bit heavy. It weighs 237 tonnes. So, as you would expect, this model of it is also big and heavy, and it comes in a large box. There's a very nice picture sleeve and it encloses a pair of expanded polystyrene trays, and they're very securely strapped together for shipping. The strapping works well, but you have to cut it to release it, and therefore if you ever wanted to ship the model again, of course you don't have the straps available. Lifting the lid, the model fills more or less the whole of the packaging, and it's quite a heavy weight to lift out of the box. There is just one other part included, and that's the front staircase. There's no assembly instructions, but attaching the staircase is as easy as it gets. It presses into a couple of holes on opposite corners of the radiator. Looking underneath, the model is suitably impressive, with many of the parts modelled in metal, and any plastic parts have a very good colour match. One nice touch on the model is that the big mud flaps are made of soft rubber. The tread pattern on the tyres is very good, and although the big wheels are plastic, they are well detailed. One improvement on this model is the big metal etched grille, and the inset lights look good too. Up on the cab deck, the metal handrails are nicely sized, although the mirrors do not have silvered surfaces. There's also a payload indicator on both sides. The red fire suppression tanks look good, and the other cabinets are metal. Looking under the body, there are two-stage lift rams, with the middle section being plastic. Moving to the back, the rear axle assembly is particularly impressive. The dump body looks the part with a good structure and sharp graphics, but it seems to be mainly made out of a tough, heavy-grade plastic. In part, that lowers the overall weight of the model, so let's do a comparison with the earlier T282B model. It has a metal dump body and weighs in at nearly 5 kilograms. The T284 has a slightly larger body, so if it was metal it would be expected to weigh a little bit more. But let's put it on the Cranes etc. weighbridge and see what it weighs in at. And if we carefully put it on the scales, we see it weighs in at just under 4 kilograms. So it's still a very heavy model, with the difference being if you drop this one it will break 4 toes instead of 5. Visually it's very hard to tell the difference between the metal and the plastic, although under certain light you can sometimes see a very slight rippling of the plastic surface. Is there any other difference? Well, let's do a sound check. So again, unless you're planning to use the model as part of a drum kit, the plastic really makes no difference. Starting underneath the model, the functionality is very good, as you would expect from Conrad. The heavy steering works well and achieves a good angle, and the working suspension on the rear axle is suitably stiff and works well. And that also applies to the front wheels, each of which has its own independent suspension. With the T284 standing on the Cranes etc. haul road, we can test the suspension again, and it is an impressive piece of model engineering. So let's fire up the big engine and see how it drives. Well, it's very sure-footed and it's helped by its very heavy weight. As the driver turns the steering wheel, giant hands come out and manipulate the front wheels, and we see that the model does a good job of turning in a curve. For the next feature test we'll move to the tipping of the dump body, and the rams that control it are stiff and very sure-footed. The overall angle is good, but maybe not quite as good as the real truck. And you do need to watch the position of the mud flaps when you lower the body. There are some other smaller features to look at. There are rock deflector bars which are designed to stop rocks getting jammed between the two rear tyre pairs. At the front, the access stair can be raised and lowered. And up on the cab deck, the plastic access gates above the ladders can be opened and closed. This Conrad model does have one other very interesting feature, and that is that the dump body is removable. To achieve that, the first thing we'll do is to ease out the giant bolts that connect the rear axle assembly to the dump body. And here it's being carefully levered out with a screwdriver. You do need to be a little bit careful though, because it is easy to scratch the paint as you get the bolt out. And then you can move on to a couple of smaller bolts which connect the lift rams. Again, these are relatively straightforward to ease out carefully. With that done and the truck still in its Australian running mode, we can lift off the chassis. And there we have the dump body separated, but still with a few smaller parts attached. Before we get onto those, it's interesting to look at the rear axle assembly, and much of it is pinned together so you could disassemble that as well. Anyway, back to the dump body, and the rams can be removed by easing out the pin, and this time we're using a screwdriver to push the pin out. And again, this is a relatively straightforward and easy operation. Even easier is to remove the front mud flaps because they just unhook off their holder. But unfortunately the rear ones are clipped in such a way that they're not really removable without ripping them off. So we'll leave those on, and also staying on are the rock deflectors because they're permanently riveted. So to display the model on a truck we need to cheat a bit, and we'll just use a quick and dirty solution of some blue tack plastic putty to hold down both the deflector bars and the mud flaps. With everything secured we can turn to the trailer, and here we've got a big Drake swing wing trailer, and we've put a couple of timbers down to support the dump body. And it's at this point that the big advantage of the plastic dump body comes into play because it's light enough that it won't crush the Drake trailer. With the dump body on board you have a very impressive heavy haulage load. This is another very impressive big mining truck model from Conrad. It's well made and high quality with a good level of detailing, and although the dump body is plastic, it makes really no difference from the visual point of view. The removable dump body is also a very good and very interesting feature, and overall this model is easy to highly recommend.